the fairies. To back up the story, 16-year-old Elsie borrowed her father's camera to try and photograph them. The girls came home an hour later. Elsie begged her father to waste no time. He had a dark room in the cupboard under the stairs. She remembers watching anxiously while he developed the plate, impatient to see how it was going to come out.
Dad says, I'll tell you what it's coming up like, that picture you've taken. He says, it's very untidy. He says, you've been eating sandwiches, the sandwich paper's all sticking up. And then he says, oh, what's these little leg things down here? And Elsie shouted out, they've come out.
A month after this first picture, they produced another, of Elsie with a winged gnome. These two photographs amazed Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes. He published them in the Strand magazine and pronounced them genuine. The story hit the headlines, and within days went round the world. Though some critics were sceptical, Conan Doyle remained convinced. He arranged for the girls to be given new cameras. They took more pictures. Francis and the Leaping Fairy, Elsie and the Winged Fairy offering a posy of flowers, and finally, the Fairy Bower. For 50 years, they stuck to their story.
Did you in any way fabricate those photographs?
Of course not. You tell us how she could do it, and we'll tell it, and then we'll tell you. Remember, she was 16. I was 10.
The case was finally cracked in 1982 with evidence from the Brotherton collection in Leeds University. It holds what are supposed to be the original negatives and prints. But Geoffrey Crawley, editor of the British Journal of Photography, soon realised that the Midge camera which the girls used simply wasn't good enough to have taken the first photograph. In particular, the simple lens could not have produced such a sharp negative.
This negative is quite lively. The edges of the fairy figures are quite sharp, and it clearly could not have been produced by that lens in that Midge camera.
Crawley reasoned that this cannot have been the original print. Amazingly, he unearthed in Cottingley what he believes is an original print. It looks quite different.
The original print is much softer, exactly the type of, shall we say, less lively image that you would expect from a camera of this type. Consequently, a lot must have gone on between that and that.
Crawley believes that the photograph was retouched by an expert.
So, what you would have to do is, first of all, make yourself a fresh negative of this. And you retouch that negative, you improve it with an airbrush, and people were very skilled in those days, possibly more skilled than today even. Now, it's the fairies that everybody's interested in. So he subdues the face, brings out the fairies. And this is the first thing that people noticed, and they said they were glowing with ethereal light.
And on the negative plate, he found evidence that the face had been subdued, probably by rubbing with Brasso. He thinks that the man behind it was Edward Gardner, believer in fairies and friend of Conan Doyle. When Crawley published his findings, Francis and Elsie confessed that the pictures were fakes. What really happened was this. After Francis had claimed she'd seen fairies up the beck, both girls were teased by the adults. Elsie hit on a scheme to stop the teasing.
Elsa said one night, we were getting ready for bed, she said, I've been thinking, kid, she was a real cinema goer, Elsa. She says, what about if I draw some fairies and cut them out in cardboard, and we'll stick them up in the grass and see if Uncle and Dad will have the camera and we'll take a photograph. So if they see them, they'll have to believe it, they'll stop all this joking.
So she lent Elsie this book. And from page 104, Elsie traced this group of dancing girls, took off their wispy drapes, drew wings on them, cut them out, and arranged them in an artistic group. Then she took the photograph. To stand them upright, they used hat pins.
What we did, and I said, with the long hat pin, we put it down the back like that, and stuck the tape at the back like that, and then gradually wormed that down. They were longer than that, though. They were about that then, 18 inches at least, and then wormed that down into the earth. And they said that the thing was that they could see them, that the fairies were moving when the photograph was taken, but that's because they did it in the breeze. I'd never even thought of it being a fraud. It was just Elsie and I having a bit of fun. And I can't understand it to this day why people were taken in. They wanted to be taken in. Because people often say to me, don't you feel ashamed that you've made all these poor people look fools? They believed in you. But I don't, because they wanted to believe. Look at this photograph. That fairy's all out of drawing. That leg doesn't belong to that fairy. And somebody pointed it out in the newspaper. And one of our dear believers said, well, fairies aren't like humans. They haven't got bodies like we have, or the skeleton and arms and legs. They sort of put it together with thought, and sometimes it doesn't come out right. We didn't have to tell a lie about it at all, because always somebody came out to justify it. It was very embarrassing because, I mean, two village kids and a brilliant man like Conan Doyle, but we could only just keep quiet.
But has the Beck yielded all its secrets? Though she admits the photographs were fakes, Frances still maintains that there were fairies at the bottom of the garden.
I'd swear that there are fairies up there, or there were then, but there aren't now.
The Cottingley fairies